suppose in other traditions, even in traditions like Sakya and Gelug, where on the sutra level, the Buddha nature teachings and Buddha nature sutras are sometimes considered as provisional, but then a tantra like Guyagarbha or Hevajra will be considered as definitive meaning. And in fact, if you look at the content, what Guyagarbha teaches, Guya Samaja teaches is how, say, the 4 or 5 elements are also by nature Buddhas. And that's what you find in some ways in the Buddha nature sutras, talking about sentient beings, how sentient beings are already Buddhas. So yes, I can see that even in case of somebody like Candrakīrti, a lot of people will think that Candrakīrti argues personally that the Buddha nature teachings should be considered as provisional, because that's what he says in his Entering the Middle Way, Madhyamaka Avatara. But then if you look at his commentary on Guya Samaja, he says he says something quite different. He has to comment on Guya Samaja and its concept of how our 5 aggregates or the 5 elements are already enlightened Buddhas, male and female Buddhas. So even in case of Candrakīrti, I think his Madhyamaka Avatara position seemed to be more provisional and not definitive, but his take on Guya Samaja would be more definitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because my way of understanding. Because if that time, if Candrakīrti and Nāgārjuna didn't emphasize on emptiness so much, then Buddhist teaching would be almost like become like a Hindu teaching. Mm-hmm. So to differentiate that or to make that clear, how to say that, clear to first understand Buddha nature, then to choose between the clarity and the emptiness. I think then our first approach has, as Buddha also taught in this sequence, so our first emphasis has to be on understanding emptiness. If you understand emptiness clearly, then there is a chance of understanding the luminosity through Tenzin, that by Tombani Sosos, kind of like emptiness form, right? But if you emphasize on clarity, luminosity, then looks like our chances of getting emptiness, unless you have a true instruction to understand emptiness, would be we may not be able to understand emptiness, or then we can become another kind of a Atma system. So that's why I guess Candrakīrti and Nāgārjuna was emphasizing so much on emptiness.
That's very, very interesting. I was reading a commentary on Jilama, the Ultimate Continuum, by someone called Plotak Dharmasinghe recently. We don't quite know who he is. There's no information available. And this commentary has only come out recently from the Drepung Library, which has been recently discovered, and books being digitized and published by Pelsek, the Ancient Manuscripts project in Hasa. And in that commentary, Plotak Dharmasinghe responds to this question. The question, why did the Buddha in the 3rd turning teach about a real Buddha nature after teaching emptiness and illusory nature of things in the 2nd turning? And he says, oh, that's because if the teachings on emptiness and illusory nature were not given before the teachings on Buddha nature, then people will be prone to sort of getting attached to an idea of self and a sort of true real nature of things. That's why the Buddha turned this second wheel on emptiness and illusory nature. And then after having done that, he is now revealing the third turning. So exactly as Khenpo, you mentioned, his response was because if emptiness were not taught before Buddha nature, then people would cling to this idea of self or Atman.